I'm importing the documentation into Eclipse because this saves a lot of time, right? All you need to do is that just hi guys, fine. So Suma, I have just one option for you. So basically, I'm going to import this. How I'm going to import this is like this. This is the Java doc link. Fine. You right click on this link. You select the option copy link location. Copy the link location and go to your Eclipse. Okay. Now there are two ways in which you can import. Either you can import it online, that is the documentation, the online documentation will come into Eclipse, or you can download the documentation, right? And you can download the documentation and give the path in your Eclipse, right? Hold on, I'll tell you. You right click on the project, go to the properties and go to the Java build path libraries where you had imported the jar files. In all these jar files, you will see a jar file called Selenium Java 2.24.1.jar. Okay, if you expand this jar file, you will see an option called Java doc location. Alright, edit it, and there are two options. Either you can get it online, you can refer the documentation online, or if you have it stored in your local machine, you can get it from local machine. I'll get it from the online stuff. You paste the URL over here which you have copied. Okay, and in the end, remove this index.html. Just remove this index.html from there. Click on OK and click on OK again. That's it. Now the documentation of Selenium has been imported in Eclipse. If you move your mouse, suppose I move my mouse over Firefox driver, I will get the description of this class. I'll get all the things which are there in the class. Okay, right? If I move my mouse over, suppose I write driver dot, I get so many functions, right? If I click on any one of the functions, I will get the description of that function. Okay, if I write the web element username dot, these are the functions available in the web element. If I click on any function, I will get the description what that function does. Right? For example, a function like click. As the name suggests, this clicks the element. Okay, so now this is helpful because I don't have to switch over to the documentation again and again. Right. Similarly, if I have to find the password field, I will write driver.find element by the ID. Or password has an ID in Gmail. Okay, in Gmail the password field has an ID. The ID is PASSWD. Okay, you can write driver.find element by the ID password. This will be represented by a web element called password, and you need to write password dot send keys some password. Okay, if you run this will write the username and password. Okay, but now the important thing is, hold on. Okay, it's working. Right. Now the important thing is, how do I identify the elements? What all criteria do I have to identify the elements? Okay, well, if I write by dot, you will get all these criteria. So I'll talk over these criteria as we proceed with the course, and I'll also talk about them right now. For example, one of the criteria is ID, which we studied. One of the criteria is name. These are easy ones, right? If the name attribute is present in the element, okay, in the element, if the name attribute is present, then you can use the name attribute over here as well. Okay, the name function you can use. But what if there is no ID, there is no name for an element in your page? How do you identify it? We are lucky here that the Gmail developers are good. They have given the ID and the name to the objects. But what if the ID and names are not there? Over there you can use the other identifying mechanisms as well. For example, something known as XPATHS you can use. Right. Now what is an XPath? XPath is like you can say it's like an address of an element. Okay. Generally all the elements, they have got unique XPaths. Sometimes some elements they have common XPaths as well, but it's like an address. Every house has a house address, right? It uniquely identifies that. So that exactly is an XPath. For example, taking you to a very simple example, suppose I am on the login page of my website. Okay, a very simple page, right? I am not taking a very complex page. Okay, I am not taking a very complex page here, a very simple and straightforward page, the login page of my website. In this, you can, if you look at the page, for example, I look at the email field over here. If you look at the email field in Firebug, then you see that everything is inside a tag called HTML. Okay, I'll open up a notepad here. Right, now inside the HTML tag there is a body tag. Inside the tag there are tags inside tags, and in the end I have the tag in which I am interested. Okay, so we can make an XPath like this. There is an HTML tag. Inside it I am interested. Inside the body tag there are various tags, but I need to go inside the div tag, because inside the div tag my field is present. So I'll write over here div. Inside the div tag there is a form tag, and inside the form tag there is a table tag. Right? So there is a form tag and then there is a table tag. So you go from one tag to another, and you have to reach the tag where your element is present. Inside the table tag there is a table body tag present. This table is actually the HTML table which I wrote earlier. I'll talk about it in the coming classes. Right? And inside the table body tag you have got various TD tags. Sorry, you have got various TR tags. TR means table rows. And I am interested in the first TR tag, because in my first TR tag the input field is line. Okay, so I'll write over here inside the table tag there are 4 TR tags, but I want to go inside the first table row, that is TR1. Right, inside the first table row there are 4 TD tags, columns, cells. Right, now inside these 4 TD tags I am interested in the third TD tag, because in my third TD tag the input field is present. So I'll write something like this, TD3. Okay, and inside that I have the input tag with which I actually want to interact. So I can write /input. So this becomes my XPath. Okay, now this kind of XPath is known as, Suma, I guess you are able to hear me now. Fine. This thing over here is actually known as the complete XPath. Complete XPath means it is coming from the base of your document, that is, it is coming from the basic HTML tag of your document. Okay, or this XPath is actually formed on the tag names. right? Okay, I'll tell you, Shalini, I have not told about FirePath right now because most of the people are not knowing about it. I'll tell it in some time. Okay, but first you need to know how this XPath is formed. Okay, now this XPath is, if you use it to identify elements, you can use it to identify elements, but it is not a good practice to identify the elements this way. Why? Because you know what, if tomorrow something, right, if I answer that question in some time, okay, Shalini, just a minute, I'll answer that question in some time. Okay, now this is not a good practice. Why? Because if the application changes tomorrow, if one more tag is introduced in between, then all my XPaths in the application will change, the complete XPath, and it will be a nightmare to maintain the code. When you make a testing framework, okay, when you in the end, what is the goal of this whole course? The goal of this course is to make a testing framework. I think I've already opened it. Like for example, this is a hybrid framework. Okay, in the last batch I was making it. You need to make a framework like this. The size becomes quite big. Okay, of this is just a small project. It's not a big project. But if something like this we have done in the project, and if it changes tomorrow, it becomes a nightmare to maintain all the files. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to refrain ourselves from using this kind of XPath. We use something known as partial XPath in the application. Okay. Now, before I proceed further, you don't need to calculate the XPath like I did. Okay, you can calculate the XPath by simply using an add-on in Mozilla. That add-on is known as FirePath. FirePath is an add-on on the top of Firebug. Okay, just go to Google and type download FirePath. Okay, you simply download this FirePath add-on. Okay. Make sure that Firebug is already installed on your system when you download it. Click on add to Firefox. Firefox will be restarted, and in the end you will see that there is a, hold on, there is a something known as FirePath coming over here. Okay, now in this FirePath you actually get the XPaths. Okay, for example, when I move my mouse over this element, I get the XPath of this element. This is the complete XPath which I am getting. Or if I move my mouse over this element, I get the XPath of this element. Right, now these are complete XPaths. These XPaths are not good. In FirePath, if I select the option generate absolute XPaths, if I unselect this option, okay, if I unselect this option, then you will get the partial XPaths. For example, this element has got this partial XPath. I'll just note it down. This is the partial element, that is //star. Star means any element on the page with ID equals to search queue. Okay, this is telling you that there is an element on the page. Okay, rather there is an input field. Okay, so instead of star you can also write input. There is an input field on the page with ID equals to search queue. This becomes the XPath. Alright, so this way, for example, if I look at this link, the name of the person query, right? If I look at this link, then this is the XPath. It says that there is an element on the page with the ID called add-on. Okay, there is an element on the page with ID called add-on. Hold on, Piyush, I'll just do that. This is the division with the ID add-on. Inside it, there is a tag called H group. So here's the tag called H group. and inside it there is a H4 tag. This is the H4 tag, and inside it there is an anchor tag, which is this. So this is the XPATH. Okay. Now Piyush is asking the question. Before that, I'll answer Shalini's question. Which is better to use, ID or XPATH? In your code over here, I can also identify the element in Gmail by writing web element username equals to driver.find element by the XPath. Okay, I can give the partial XPath of the Gmail field. That is, if I look at it in the Firebug in the username, this is the partial XPath. I can give it over here. Now, which is better? Should we use this or should we use this? Well, there is no answer for that. You can use any. You can use any, right? Okay, there is no answer for that. But for example, if you look at a field like this, the name over here, clearly, this name has got no ID. This is a name with only the href attribute. There is no ID attribute because ID attribute is optional. So you cannot use this line over here by the ID. You can use XPath over here. Okay, you can take the XPath of this element, right, and identify it. Fine. Now, question being asked by Piyush is, I hope I answered your question, Shalini, right? Now, Piyush is asking, can you show one more time how to use partial XPath? It's quite easy, right? After you install Firepath, you unselect this option, unselect, and just click on this arrow, move your mouse, and you will get the partial XPath. Okay, so we refrain ourselves from using the complete XPath or the absolute XPath. Now, sometimes what happens is that Selenium is not able to click on an element, or it's not able to find an element when you specify a partial XPath. What happens is that if you identify the element with the complete XPath, it identifies. Because complete XPath is actually to the point. It gives you the exact location of the element from the base of the HTML document. But it's not recommended to use this. But sometimes partial XPaths, they fail. I've seen them failing. And when I use the complete XPath, it identifies. At that point of time, you have no option. At that time, you have no option but to use the complete XPath. But if there are 1000 XPaths in your application which you are using, right, out of which if you use 5 or 6 complete XPaths, it doesn't really make a difference. But don't use complete XPaths for all the 1000 objects in your application. Right? It depends. It depends on various criteria. As I proceed with the course, I'll be taking a lot of examples. Now, sometimes what happens is that the ID of the element keeps on changing. For example, I go to the page facebook.com. Okay, I'll go to the web page facebook.com and what's this? Hold on. Right, and if I look at the XPath of this login button, this is the XPath, partial XPath. Okay, it is saying that there is an element on the page with the ID this. Right, now if I close my browser and open my browser again, and I go to the page facebook.com again, and I look at the login button once more. When I look at the login button XPath once more, I get this XPath. If you observe carefully, then the ID of this element is changing every time when the page loads. You getting this point? Now, the certain portion of the ID remains constant, UC, that's it. The rest of the portion is changing. You have got applications like this, especially applications made in EXTJS technologies, they are like this. The IDs they keep on wearing every time you load the page. What is the solutions in these kind of scenarios, right? We will be looking at these scenarios later on, right? Not right now, okay? But there are various ways in which you can identify the object. That's what I want to tell you, right? You have got challenges with XPATHS as well, okay? Now if I come back to my original example, that is gmail.java, out here I have written these two lines. I have identified web element, username, password and all everything. Okay, now I can write the XPath over here and this will work. Okay, if I run this program, this will identify the username field with XPath and this will certainly work. Okay, hold on. If I am running this code, you see that it works. Fine. Now for interacting with one element, I am writing 2 lines of code. Okay, I want that to interact with one element. I just want to write 1 line of code, so you can write the complete thing in 1 line. That is driver.find element by the XPath. This becomes your web element. Find dot send keys hello directly. The execution will start from left to right. First the web element will be extracted and then it's written. Now again you write driver.find element by the XPath or you write this ID, that's it, by the ID password dot send keys some password, right? So this will also work. So I can remove all these lines and just these 2 lines will make the code work. So these are also more than enough. Okay, I can run this code and this will simply execute the line, right? Now sometimes there are Ajax components on the page. There are lots of components which are loaded after the page gets loaded. Okay. Suppose I am going to a web page, right? I am just talking about scenarios which might be in your mind right now. Okay, that suppose if a page opens up but the button is not there on the page. The button gets enabled after 10 seconds, right? The page opens up and the button gets enabled after 10 seconds. And I need to click on the button when the button gets enabled. It's an Ajax component, right? So how do I work with that? Okay, now those kind of scenarios also I will be talking about. You have to use implicit waits and WebDriver wait classes with those components, right? But let's focus on the basics right now. For time being, let's focus on the basics of understanding how to identify elements. Right now, as I proceed with the course,